Hello, welcome back to Shooting the Shelf Wednesday One Shots. I'm here with our buddy Dylan, aka Legends
Um,
Collector 1321. And I don't know what Curtis is always talking about, the 1,320 other ones. There is only one Legends Collector in my book, and that is you.
oh,
So,
thanks, man. There is one other guy. I'm trying to trying to get rid of him.
oh, there is another Legends
There's a
Collector,
the
something or other?
Legends collector
Okay.
that I guess wasn't around when I made the name,
Ah,
or if he was, I didn't know about it. But because of the number, it didn't tell me.
gotcha. Well, today we're doing our Wednesday one shot. It's a little late recording it. Usually we have these out Monday morning, but that's okay because this one is the 1994 classic, dare I say, masterpiece,
I would.
The Crow. So this is the original movie adaptation of the James O'Barr comic series. Um, with Brandon Lee, directed by Alex Proyas, and I'll get into my thoughts on that. But Dylan, this was your pick for a
Yes.
Wednesday one shot. So set us up.
So it actually worked out perfectly when we're doing this because I said, "Oh, we should do this as like a Halloween thing," and it's
Yep.
the week of Halloween as we're recording. Um, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. So much of me as a person is because of this movie.
Okay.
Um, it's one of I love it so much that it's like hard to put
Sure.
into words. But yeah, this was a really formative movie for me in
Okay.
high school and that. So
Excellent. Well, for those of you who have not seen the movie, we probably will get spoilery in this one. This movie's been around for 94.
30
So what is that
years.
crap? 30 years
This
this
year
year.
was the 30th anniversary.
Yeah. One of my most influential movies came out in 1994 as well, but we're not talking about that today. Um, of course, there is the whole mystery and tragedy around the death of Brandon Lee
Yeah.
involved in the making of this movie, the son of Bruce Lee. But we're going to talk about the movie itself and that sort of thing. So Dylan's saying it's hugely influential on his life. I'll say it's been very influential on my life by proxy.
Okay.
I didn't think of this until I right before you logged on to record this. Should have got my buddy Sean in on this because this was one of his all-time favorite movies. So much to the point where most of my recollections of this is going to be through my relationship with Sean. So we've been friends since '88. This movie came out and he had got his mom to take him to see it, and like, it was very influential on him. He was, he did the Halloween costume. We were in high school by this point, and um, I didn't get around to seeing it, but I knew he was obsessed with it. And the uh, the soundtrack, he learned how to play guitar. I don't know if it was because of this movie, but he learned how to play the guitar riff from this, where he's like up on the rooftop and
Uh-huh.
all that stuff. But back in the day when this movie came out, once it had its theatrical run, it was almost a year later before it came out on VHS. The old cassette tapes you used to put in a VCR player. Then it came out to rental stores first. They had it for a couple months before you could buy it. So it was not like, there was a staggered release. Now, that new one came out earlier this year and it was
It's
on
already on
streaming
streaming, yeah.
and like within 2 months or less. Um, all that
That's
to
another
say, not to criticize
conversation.
that movie,
Yeah.
that's a different conversation,
Yeah.
but just the process. But if you wanted to buy it early before it was like publicly available, he was able to convince Blockbuster to sell it. It was almost $100, I think, to buy the VHS because they were losing the
Yeah.
rentals off of it.
Yeah.
Um, that's how much he liked this movie. And I watched it with him at some point after that, talking about the movie, not about the movie. But when I got to see it, it's dark. It's dark. It's heavy. It's got as Alex Price has a very unique style in
Yeah.
his filmmaking. It's not quite Tim Burton. You know, there is like a somewhat hyper realisticness to it, but it's a darker, grittier version than um, uh, Tim Burton. Tim Burton's got there's like a whimsical aspect to his stuff,
Yeah.
and um, sorry, I'm really rambling on here. But it's I really liked it. I thought it was really good knowing Sean and his it totally makes sense why he loved this movie. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that's given you some time to drum up some thoughts.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm a lot younger than most people that we're friends with these days with our community. So I found this movie a little over 10 years ago. I think
Okay.
I must have been 14, 15 when I first heard about it. Because for my 16th birthday, it's all the way up there, but my parents got me the Hot Toys Crow.
Oh,
And that was
nice.
like, that's my only Hot Toys. It will probably remain my only Hot Toy,
Okay.
but it's one of my favorite things. It looks just like them. Um, and if that's not the sign of something being important, I don't know what
Sure.
it's for me at least. But yeah, this and I know when we did Van Helsing, I mentioned Hellboy.
Uh-huh.
This and Hellboy, the styles of it and all that. I wore a trench coat in high school every single day after I saw this movie. um, it was, and at that point, kind of controversial for someone in
Uh,
the 2010s to wear a trench coat to school.
sure. I think when
Um,
I was in high school, it might have gotten you made fun of.
yeah,
And a couple years later, I mean, again, it's a whole other thing. Continue.
yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's funny you mentioned the music, the scene with the guitar. I tried to teach myself guitar, same thing. Because of this, I did learn that riff. That's probably the only riff I still know. That and Wake Me Up When September Ends.
Oh, nice.
Um, but the music, funnily enough, is not something that I really took from this movie. I think I was already pretty set with the music that was me, but the style with everything is done there. There's so much that I do like now that is influenced by this movie. Um,
Gotcha.
and that's a whole other conversation. This is
Sure.
about the Crow. Um, I guess with what you were saying with the like the whimsy of Tim Burton not really being in this as much, and this just being a real gritty. It's always raining, everything's soaking wet. It feels cold, even though everything's on fire the whole time. And
Hmm.
there's explosions and car chases and all this stuff and gunfire and everything. Um, but I actually found this out recently, and it complete full circle kind of thing. The opening shot of the crow flying over the city, or actually, you might not even see the crow. I think it's either POV or the crow's there. I don't remember. It's been a few days since I
I can't remember
checked, but
specifically,
so
but yeah,
that is a model. That's not like an overhead. That's a model of Detroit.
right.
That and all the car chase scenes. There are RC cars a mini, in a miniature, which is really cool.
That is cool.
Um,
I don't think I knew that.
yeah, I found when speaking of this being the 30th anniversary, when they put this out in theaters a few months ago, or I guess more than a few months ago, they put the behind the scenes little featurette at the beginning, and it
Oh,
said
cool.
that the whole thing was on shot on a miniature, and it was like really cool to see and then notice it for the first time. because I don't think you would really know unless you're looking for it because it's so dark and grungy and it looks like
Hmm.
it's shot on film, which it is. Um, yeah,
But full size, you mean? Yeah,
yeah, like
like full.
because
Yeah.
of the grittiness of being shot on film, as opposed to nowadays everything's
Oh
digital.
yeah, yeah,
You can't really tell because it's dark and wet and everything, but it's
sure.
so. I think it's just one of those aspects of it that like is that twisted sort of Tim Burton-y
Hmm.
feeling that when you watch like Nightmare Before Christmas or Edward Scissorhands or whatever Tim Burton movie, like it feels like whatever the movie is supposed to. This movie, so it's set on Halloween, and Eric is a very Halloween icon now. I don't. It feels Halloween to me, but it's more than that. It just feels like grunge as a whole.
Yeah.
But you know,
No. Yeah.
it just feels dirty in
Yeah.
the best way.
Yeah, and I mean that was definitely a major influence in style at the time this came out. But like this was like if someone wanted to be like, what is the grunge aesthetic? What is the grunge? Not just music, but what is
Yeah,
that? You point to this movie.
yeah.
Um, Hopefully, the stuff that happens in this movie does not happen to you to experience the grunge
No,
thing. But so, real quick, the breakdown is again, it's an adaptation of the James O'Barr comic series, which I personally have never read.
so good.
But it follows the story of Eric Draven. It starts off for people who have not watched it, and you want to definitely do. But the beginning of the movie, it deals with some heavy stuff. It doesn't fully show the horrific details, but you know what's going on, and you know there is some uncomfortable things in the beginning of the movie that set up the story, and he eventually becomes like kind of this Dark Avenger, not capital A
Killer of Killers.
comics Avenger, but of um, taking out vengeance on these people that did wrong by him and his fiance, and so it's really at the end of the day, it's really a love story
Yeah,
in not the most twisted way possible, but in a, a grungy, uncomfortable way, and it's of course, the tragedy of, Brandon Lee's story that, him
yeah,
passing while making this movie is pretty tragic, but I think the movie stands on its own. A lot of great action. There's a lot of great one-liners and
I quote this movie all the
moments.
time.
And for as dark and grungy it is, there is this element of hope
Yeah,
to looking to the future, like his whole interaction with Sarah
yeah. I was
and the
gonna
stuff with
say
her mom and stuff.
all the characters are so well put together. And I like this, like Sarah. I don't believe exists in the book beyond him talking to a girl in like one scene. I believe
Okay.
it's been a while since I read the comic, which I'll put a pin in that. I do want to talk about the differences a little bit without getting too deep, and also the background of the book itself that
Okay.
in a really messed up way mirrors the movie and real life. So I'll circle back. But like all the characters, all the protagonists, you love all the characters. And they all have their heartfelt moments and they're funny when they need to be and all that. And the characters that need to be redeemed get redeemed. And you love to hate the bad guys. And you love to laugh at the bad guys when the bad things happen to the bad guys.
Yep.
And it's like this is one of those movies that if you got a whole group of people together and you said every time there's a fire, take a shot, everyone's on the floor in like 10 minutes. But this would be so much fun to like get a bunch of people together and just watch this and like really soak in just like the feeling of the season almost,
Sure.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very urban Halloween, so
Yes.
it's not cornfields and ghosts coming out of the closet and that sort of
No.
thing. It's a very urban, city, not really a horror story, but like it just, I mean,
No.
there are elements that are horror, but
That is an interesting thing. Everyone puts him with horror characters. Like back in the day when, making figures of like adult properties was a funny it's funny. It was like a big thing, but it was also like a new thing. It was like the Horseman era of
sure.
McFarlane toys and all that. I don't think they worked on it, but uh Movie Maniacs had the Crow, and they had a few different pieces of Eric and Top Dollar and the Crow, and a bunch of different, like when there were statues more than figures. And I think NECA did a couple back in the day also.
Okay.
Um, but that then he gets lumped in with Freddy and Jason and Michael and Pinhead and all that stuff because of what he looks like.
Hmm.
But I would say that he's way more like, I don't want to say Batman, but he's much more of a like a superhero than a horror character.
Yes, yeah,
So yeah,
definitely more supernatural and like that side of like, and I mean, he does kill a lot of people, but like
yes, he's
he's
like the
not like your
Punisher.
Freddy or Jay. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's like supernatural Punisher.
yeah.
Yeah. They did work on the Crow figure, but the accessories only for the movie
Okay,
Maniacs.
okay,
So they did
gotcha.
work on the Crow's accessories. So,
Okay, that's
which
cool.
was, I believe, the guitar and the crow. I think,
Yeah. So
I don't remember if he came with anything else.
I might be mixing up releases, but I know there was him on the roof with the weather vane, like the final battle,
That's right. Yeah,
and he
there was
had
that
the
one
the
too.
spire, and it came with the little piece of the top of the church.
Yep.
There was one that came with the fire crow.
Okay.
There was one that came. These some of them might be the NECA pieces. I don't remember. There was one that was
Yeah.
it was him sitting in front of the mirror that came with two figures, and one was him as the crow, and one was him as Eric putting on the makeup.
Okay.
And then there was one with Top Dollar that was like a diorama set.
I don't know if those were the Spawn ones or the McFarlane ones.
I don't remember.
I think all the McFarlane ones were just the one where him standing, like coming in the door with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
hands
yeah.
out, and you
Mm-hmm.
had the crow on his shoulder and the guitar
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
over a strap. And they did two releases. One where it was just the blister card, and then there was like a deluxe one with um like the window scene, like the little diorama
Okay, okay, yeah,
in the
yeah.
case. But
Okay. Well, there's a
yeah,
little
I think
history on the crow toys of the past.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
but circle back to the you were going to say something about the real life
Oh, yes. So
parallels between the movie and the book.
yeah. So James O'Barr, I believe the book came out in '88, or it was published in '88. He started writing it in sometime in the '80s. His
Okay.
fiance was killed by a drunk driver.
Oh,
They, I, I don't want to muddy the details, so I'm just gonna say his fiance got killed by a drunk driver, and then he fell into this deep depression, and then this book came out of it, and he wrote the story of Eric and Shelley and losing a loved one and all the grief that comes with that. And in the book, the crow speaks to him and essentially says to Eric, "Don't look, don't look, don't look." And Eric looks, and the crow's like, "I told you." And there's like all this horrific stuff that you don't see, but you know is happening, kind of like what you said before, like you know what's going on. And he wrote all of it just from his feelings and everything, which it took him a long time to write it. So when you read it, it's very disjointed. And some of them is comic art, and some is like painting style, and some it's all this different stuff that like kind of adds to that grungy sort of punk rock dirt feeling that it has with the whole thing. And like, he's based on Iggy Pop with like all that, and Sting based his whole look off The Crow after The Crow came out and all that. But then that leads into the real life tragedy of Brandon Lee, which whatever connection people want to make up and say involved his father and the Chinese mob and whatever, all that. But Brandon Lee, which it's a horrible thing that however many years ago now it was, the whole Alec Baldwin thing with that movie. Same exact thing with The Crow. It was a prop gun that was improperly inspected by the prop department when they bought it from a pawn shop, and there was the tip of a bullet lodged in the barrel, and when a blank got fired, it shot the little piece of metal and hit Brandon Lee in the abdomen, and he died on his way to the hospital, I believe, or at the hospital. Obviously they cut it, but the scene is in the movie, just not the exact moment when it happens.
Right.
The actor that was holding the gun stopped acting for a long time. It was Fun Boy. I can't think of his name. It's a horrible, horrible tragedy. And it's a shame that it's still happening with Hollywood, that this kind of stuff, they aren't just like, okay, we're just going to use fake guns. All that. I could go on about that for long, but I'll spare the audience that. But yeah, it's a horrible thing. But they basically said, we're finishing this for Eric, or for Brandon. See, everything blends together. They had, I believe it was 8 days left of shooting, and all of the stuff that they needed to shoot they all did with body doubles. And one of the guys that did John Wick is the body double for Brandon Lee in this movie.
Okay.
I don't remember which one, but the noticeable, that's why the scene it's all the scenes when he comes back the first time for the most part. And it's the scene where he's in his apartment and his shadow's like up against the wall, and Sarah's like, so you're back, and that's why there's his shadow, not him, because it's a body double. And then there's one other one where his face is superimposed over the body double, and it's only noticeable now with our modern technology and the movie getting redone and remastered and all that. But you'd never know. Just like the miniature of the city, you'd never know. Which I think is really cool. It really makes the whole thing feel like a little vignette, sort of fairy tale-esque story more than a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Which I think is why for so many people, it's so formative. And, Heath Ledger's Joker's based on this, and there's so much that came from this movie that, this did The Matrix before The Matrix. The Matrix had to get their trench coat idea from something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an official thing or not, but it lines up. Heath Ledger. There's scenes in this where Brandon Lee's performance is very Heath Ledger. Like the scene where he stop me if I ramble too much.
You're fine.
When he confronts Tintin, it's his first kill of the movie. When he goes up to Tintin and he's like, a year ago in a loft, I'm sure you'll remember. It's very Heath Ledger, and or I guess Heath Ledger is very Brandon Lee, and if you look at it that way. There's so much of it that I knew about that first, and I loved that, and that was also a very important character to me. And then when I found this, I was like, oh my god. But There's so much that this movie inspired or brought to the forefront almost with the whole punk scene and grunge and all that, like we were saying.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'll let you
Very
take it for a
nice.
little bit.
No, that's great. That's really cool. Again, that's why I wanted you to do a lot of the talking because
Thank you.
I do like this movie. I enjoy
Mm,
watching it. But like I said, I should have had you and Sean do this. Just be like, all right, guys, here, you two go at it. I'll just sit here and
that would have
listen.
been cool.
Um, but yeah, check it out. I don't know where it's streaming right now. I'm sure it's somewhere.
When I last checked,
Let's
I don't
see.
remember.
I got my IMDb pulled up here. It looks like it's available on Paramount, Pluto,
Yeah,
a bunch of
it's
stuff.
on
Amazon. You might
YouTube.
have to
Yeah,
rent or pay for, but yeah, it's. Um,
yeah.
oh, we can't talk about this. Okay, we'll wrap it up here, but we got to talk about Michael Wincott. Like,
Yes.
um, where is he? As top dollar, like he. I first saw him just a few years before this, or at least recognized him from a few years before this
Mm,
in the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves movie, and he plays Guy Gisborne, and he is despicable in that movie
mm,
and great actor, and he is as if not more so despicable in this movie. But again, great
yeah.
performance. He adds such a presence to any movie he's in,
Mm,
no matter how long, in my opinion. And yeah, it's a really good movie, so go check it out. Go watch The
yeah.
Crow. Don't bother with any of the sequels. That's just my own personal opinion, or remakes. Um,
Yeah. I did just find out about there was like a fan film made by a bunch of high school kids.
okay,
Just right around the same time this came out. I think it took them like 10 years to make it or something. I just found out about it, but it's basically the comic, but they
oh,
filmed it.
okay,
I'll have to find. Let me see. Uh, I don't want to drag this out too long, but movie dumpster. They just sorry. I don't want that to play. Don't play. Okay. I'm so sorry. This is taking too
that's okay.
long. What's it called? So on YouTube, it just says The Crow 1998 VHS fan film. And then
Okay,
there's a documentary called Inertia Remaking The Crow.
okay,
And it's a bunch of high school kids saw the movie and wanted to make it like the comic. And it took them however long. And, it's not shot well. It's probably really bad, but it's really accurate. And it's high school kids having fun making an accurate version of The Crow, which I think
okay,
is really cool. I believe it is all available on YouTube for free.
okay.
Uh,
Well, there you
yeah,
go. Check those out. The Crow 1998 VHS fan film and the Inertia remaking The Crow on YouTube.
yeah.
And go check out just the 1994 Crow with Brandon Lee and Michael
Oh,
Wincott
absolutely.
and all those folks.
Yeah,
Listen to some good tunes and you know, happy Halloween.
yeah.
And
Happy Halloween,
well, until next time, folks. Can't rain all the
victims.
time.
Aren't we all?
See you later.
Later.
Why is this button not working?